There is a fraternity, a group of people who work so hard every day in this country, very hard, but they earn very little. Then there's another small group of people who earn very big with very little effort. I am telling you today, if you subjected the CEOs and the top executives of our parastatals and even in government, many of them, just ask them to write a 1-page working or 2 or a 4-page working paper or a concept note on what they want to do, some specialized form of writing, you will see the mess we are in. They can't write. They can read.
What's the relationship between writing and competence? Hey, wadau, alafu kabla tuzame kwa conversation, if you believe this is your ear ya kubuild, then this message is for you. Please allow me to plug you to K&K Precast Engineering to introduce you to a concept where you can build better and spend less. Now, with the technology that K&K Precast Engineering wanatumia, you get the same quality ya traditional housing or even better. Kwa wale wamekuwa wakistruggle na black cotton soil au sijui moa foundation, sijui chimba mchanga toa yote, this suspended foundation ya K&K Precast Engineering solve that for you. Sasa precast ni nini? Unaona bridges zinatengenezwa, wanatengeneza concrete kando inashikanishwa na chuma ndani, proper reinforcement, wanakuja wanaekelea. Expressway imetengenezwa juzi, hiyo ndio barabara tunapitia. Now K&K Precast Engineering Limited wamepata njia ya kutumia that same technology for residential homes, apartment blocks and all matters construction, and the deal is even better. Also note that K&K Precast Engineering Limited will build capacity ya full construction process all the way from the foundation to finishing unaingia kwa nyumba. For more inquiries, get in touch with the team ya K&K Precast Engineering through the contact details tumekuwekea kwa screen. Consider yourself plugged. Hello now. Our guest for this episode is the introduction, the profile of our guest for this episode, I believe can fit in an encyclopedia. His name is a familiar name to many, Gwada Ogot. Gwada Ogot. In all the things you have done, what do you like to identify with?
Wow. You ask some very hard questions.
Easy.
I like to identify with my God, who I serve very faithfully. I like to identify with the goodness and the kindness of humanity. Mm-hmm. And I also like to identify with the light, which is essentially to identify not just with goodness, but with the benefits of light, such as knowledge, such as culture, mm-hmm. and humanity or humanness.
Ah.
Yes.
We're about to hear so much of that on this episode. There's a disconnect hapa kidogo.
Yes.
When you say you identify with God,
yes,
the goodness of humanity,
yes,
there is a phrase, humanity still exists.
yes,
because there is the other side,
yes,
of humanity. In fact, if you ask me, minus civilization,
yes,
human beings,
yes,
are brutal. In fact, human beings are the most dangerous animals in the world.
True.
So the goodness of humanity is
yes,
a segment of humanity, or it's humanity in general?
It is humanity comprehensively, and it is based on the principle and the belief that the human being is not innately born defective, that the human being can be good, can be kind, can be generous, mm-hmm. can be humble, can be cultured, must not be abusive, must just be able to live a cultured life that man can live and let fellow man live.
You don't subscribe to the idea that some behavior, let me use the word behavior, mm-hmm. is inherited, yeah. and has nothing to do with the human being, with the individual human being. Also, some of the things that will be considered inhuman,
yes,
can be associated, in fact, with empirical evidence,
yes,
to the chemical composition of a particular individual.
Indeed, that is true. But I get the basis for this under what has been summarized in the Holy Bible as the Ten Commandments. It's probably the greatest moral code that ever existed. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not lie, thou shalt not covet, and on and on. And that those 10 principles summarize the idealness of life, and therefore they become an objective towards which we all must work to achieve.
Okay.
Yes.
And
to aspire to get to.
We have this
Yes.
because human beings,
Yes.
minus
Yes.
a certain code of ethics,
Yes.
are very unethical.
Yes, human beings, like everybody else, require a lot of order and guidance. They require, human life requires a map for which it operates, one that is based on values and the do's and the don'ts. Like everything else on earth, you have two specific features or perspectives, a binary one. You have light and darkness. You have left and you have right. You have the Old Testament and the New Testament. You have good and bad. So once you understand that human life is a balance, and there, in philosophy there is something called the perfect balance. The perfect balance of light. When you walk, you're a symmetrical being. Your hands are balanced, your legs are balanced, and what is called the perfect balance that cuts across. There's a word for it. I'll give it to you shortly. Everything is a balance, and that balance is what we pursue. Actually, the entire effort of life is to pursue a balance. That is why the car has 4 tires. Balance. The chair has 4 legs. Balance. The cameras are tripods. Balances. The table. Balance. When you walk, balance. When you play football or any sport, the objective is the perfect balance. That is why when people lift the trophy, they lift it with 2 hands, because the team that has won is the most balanced team. As you're dribbling, you don't fall. Balance. In rugby, as you're cutting through, balance. In basketball, as you're shooting, balance. So the key objective of life is to maintain a perfect balance. Because if you don't, then you fall.
Okay.
Yes.
But we go back to, so human beings need rules to abide by.
Yes.
Because they are not born moral. Like, morality is not internal. It is not, is this intrinsic or extrinsic? It is not,
It's
it
not
does not
intrinsic.
come
Yes.
from within.
Intrinsic.
Yes.
When we are born without any software. We begin to acquire the software through interactions, through vision, through physical touch, and through relation with nature and all its products. We start hearing what our parents say. We start hearing what our peers speak of. And through that, we start developing a software that guides our thinking through most of our lives. So if you are born where in a land where people walk with one hand like this, the day you find people walking with 2 hands like this, you will think they're abnormal. So we are conditioned by circumstances. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So you also mentioned you identify with light.
Yes.
In the evil's circles,
Yes.
in the devil's kingdom,
Yes.
they identify as light, hence the Illuminati.
Yes. Yes.
What's the difference?
I think let us first understand the context of light. We as human beings are agencies of light. Our entire life and scripting is based on our relationship with light. When as a male, you wake up in the morning, the first thing that triggers is your private area in the morning at 5. And that triggers because the light is returning.
Even if you did not sleep with the lights on.
Yes. But no, the big light, the light of the sun, the energy from the sun. Because light is energy. Light is not just light. Light is energy, light is heat.
So the original alarm is the private part.
That is what wakes you up first, whether you like it or not. And it is only because that light is returning. Then the moment that light returns, you get out of the bed. You change your instrument. The instrument of the night is to lie flat and comatose. But the instrument of the day is to sit on a chair. You cannot sleep in the day. If you sleep in the day, you're either sick or lazy. So one denotes power and one denotes weakness.
As far as the sun is concerned,
Yes.
the sun does not go to sleep. I believe, as per what we were taught in science,
Yes.
The world being spherical.
Yes.
So when the sun goes,
Yes.
so inamulika hizo nini, the clock ticks in the other part of the world, so inaamusha private parts za huko,
Yes.
za huku zinazimika.
Let me explain further. There are two forms of light. One is called incandescent light, which is light that is very straight. That is the light of the sun. That is the light that pierces like a spear. That is why during the day, you're upright and walking. Then when it gets to evening at 6, as the light retires,
Yes.
and the moonlight starts relaying its light, you get what is called luminescent light. That is cold light. And the other one is hot light. Cold light has very little energy. So what happens is the more that light retires, your eyes also start losing power and energy. You go until you sleep. So as the light is gone, you are flat and comatose. And your legs are disconnected from the ground, which is also an energy source. Then in the morning, you put your legs back down, get up, clothe yourselves, and start again with energy. Because the main source of light and energy in the world is one, the sun. And the sun, S-U-N, is also the sun, S-O-N, hence the resurrection.
So now, without losing that train of thought, same thread.
Yeah.
So if your private part connects to the light to wake you up in the morning.
Yeah.
So for the people who use that part at night,
Yeah.
you wake it up and use it. That means you're forcing the light.
No. You see, you need to understand the peak hours of the cycle of the clock. 6 a.m., peak hour. What do you do in the peak hour? You get up and you light a fire. And the first thing you relate with when you wake up is water. Water to wash, water to brush your teeth, and water to put on the fire. Then at the next peak hour, it is 12 noon. You light another fire for lunch and put water on it again. Water. Then in the evening at 6, you light another fire and you put water on it again. When you put the 12 plus the 6 and the 6, you get 24-hour cycle. It's all a matrix. Then in the place where we live called Kenya, where you have a perfect balance of light, 12-hour day, 12-hour night.
Yes.
When it gets to 6, you start losing energy. In fact, you start saying, I'm very tired. I've had a long day, I'm tired. You're not tired because of what you did in the day. You're tired because your source of energy, which is the human source of energy, is moving further away into the abyss, into the west.
So what about the people who claim to be night people, whereby you're more active at night than you are during the day?
Now, this world is a spiritual. There's two, again, like I said, the two contexts. There's the physical world, and then there's the spiritual world. They are interconnected. Now, everybody is a spiritual being. Some spirits are evil, and some spirits are good. That is why the same question you're asking, there are certain animals that only operate during the day, the animals of the light, the cows, the sheep, the donkeys, the goats, and the rest. Then there is the animals of the night. When the sun goes in the evening, all these animals of the day are taken and locked safely and guarded. Then there's a new string, a new team of animals that come out with a very different concave eyes. The leopards. When you want to dazzle a leopard, what do you do to it? You light a torch at night and put it down. It will spend its entire time looking at the torch until the battery dies. It cannot handle light. The hyena. So the animals of the day are different spiritual, bear a different spiritual context from the animals of the day. And so do human beings too.
Okay,
So those human beings who you find them very active at night, you can always relate them from that spiritual context.
So if you have a friend out there who claims to be active at night, those are hyenas.
Philosophically,
Yes.
he's an animal of the night.
Okay.
Yes, philosophically, he's an animal of the night.
Okay.
I don't want to call them hyenas.
Philosophically, they are.
They are. You see, the animals of the night are animals of prey. That is why it is at night that thieves are on the prowl, that prostitution is rampant, that and there are not very many people at that night. The people who hang around, most people are asleep. But there's a special breed of people who specifically feel energized at night because they are driven by a different context of light.
Okay.
Yes.
Sawa. So let's come back kidogo.
Yeah.
I believe you've had a stint
Yes.
with governance.
Yes,
Right?
yes, I did.
A stint with governance. In
Yes.
fact, you leave the country in 2009?
Yes, I went into exile in 2009.
Yes.
At that time, I was an analyst with Citizen TV. I used to do the breakfast show with Jimmy Gathu and Mutegi Njau and Kobi Kihara.
Yeah.
And I also used to sit I was a panelist on the, what was his name? Louis Otieno. And at one time I made a statement, I think, that must have irked certain powers. And there was an attempt to abduct me outside Kenya, outside Electricity House, opposite Air India. And what still is, I identified one of the abductors.
Like you identified, you knew the person?
I knew him, and I actually told him. And that complicated a lot.
The person is still in the corridors of politics. The person you
No,
mentioned.
the person, I think he was a policeman, the one I identified. The four who came to abduct me, the guy who was driving the vehicle they were policemen.
So the person, you mentioned someone on TV.
I mentioned something on TV to do with political dynasties, amongst others, and down in Nyanza, I had also started a movement called 111, which is us, us, us. And then there was Gin, 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 which is them, them, them. So it created a very deep fissure in the political basis of Nyanza, and it was also based on identity.
What was the ideology there?
The ideology was consciousness, political consciousness, and the liberation of political liberation for our people. I felt very strongly that we needed a new direction of leadership, and that our own community could find leadership within itself, because the leadership we had was identified more with another group in Western Kenya.
How dangerous is that conversation?
Today?
Yes.
Today it's not very dangerous.
But it still has some elements of danger?
No, the people who pushed it are not there.
Thank you. So now, for context, because it seems like an interesting thread to follow, kidogo too.
Yes.
What happened in 2009? Like, is it something we can talk about?
Yes, why not? It happened. It's real.
What happened? What did you mention, and how the cycle of events from what you mentioned?
I was a panelist on the Reorientation show.
Yes.
And I used to do the morning breakfast newspaper reviews.
Yes.
Every morning.
Yes.
And at one point, I came up with a deduction that the entire problems of this country rotated around 3 or 4 political dynasties. Mm-hmm. That these political dynasties controlled political parties and therefore controlled access to parliament and who became a parliamentarian. And therefore they also controlled through the political parties people who would be appointed to high positions in government, that all access to the leges of government had to be through their instruments or their vehicles, their political vehicles. And if anybody fell outside of them, that person had no recourse, absolutely. So you either had to kneel or be sat on.
Sawa.
Yes.
So we go back kidogo.
Yes.
This is the period between 2005, 2009.
Yes.
So this is after the coalition government.
Yes, the NAC coalition came in 2002.
2002 and
Yeah.
then PNU and
Yes,
ODM.
yes,
That's a
yes,
coalition government.
yes,
So
yes.
this conversation comes during the PNU ODM.
That
coalition
season,
government.
yes.
Yes. So now in 2002, we have President Kibaki,
Yeah.
who does not come from any of the prominent families that we know.
Yes.
Was he a dynasty himself?
No.
He wasn't.
Kibaki was not a dynasty and was not a danger to me in any way.
How does he manage to become president, yet we had the so-called dynasties that you mentioned that control access
Yes.
to parliament?
When Kibaki came in, Kibaki came in, one, he had just, Moi had proposed Uhuru Kenyatta
Yes.
as his heir.
Yes.
But then Uhuru was completely raw. And there was a rebellion, I think the LDP rebellion, that was led by Raila and Saitoti, and they all moved, when they moved to LDP. And Kibaki came, that was probably one of the most mobilized elections in this country. And Kibaki came in as an anti-force against what had been. We had been with Moi for so long, and people were welled up after 24 years. So Kibaki came in as probably the most balanced, and the person who could balance between a total revolution and status quo. Somebody who could create a balance. He was acceptable across the board, and he appeared harmless to everybody. So he was a good compromise candidate, and he won.
Yes.
And that sort of defined the circumstances under which he came. So his victory was unique in that order. But there was also a prime minister after the Kibaki victory who came from my homeland. And so when you look at Kibaki being outside the traditional dynasties, you still find a prime minister who came from the traditional dynasties.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So now we forward to you mentioning that there is like this was actually part of the campaign rhetoric in 2002 to 2022.
Yes.
Dynasty versus hustlers.
Yes.
Was that an accurate representation of what actually happens?
Okay, I think one thing you probably maybe need to get also clarity upon.
Yes.
Elections are normally won against what you'd call a polarization of some sort. You must create what you would call a referendum within an election. One of the to give you an example, in the last election, one of the key defining issues was whether to legalize or maintain status quo against cannabis. That is why Raila was, no one can stop reggae. Cannabis constituency. Kalonzo was Buffalo Soldier. Cannabis constituency. Wajakoya was Bangi. Same constituency. same constituency. But to many people, it did not appear to be the key thing that was driving the election. But why? Because that constituency was considered to have between 7 to 8 million people. Yes. So normally to win an election, there must be that polarization that is created. Now, you can choose to have a very base one, like an ethnic contest. This time, were Kikuyu na Wakalenjin watapigana, or Luos and who. That has been there, we've seen it, very base. But you can choose to polarize people on a good idea that actually spurs the nation forward. So that is what happened. Now, during that election of dynasties versus hustlers, yes, it was dynasty. The hustlers were supposed to represent everybody else who did not come from the dynastic lineages.
So you mentioning the dynastic lineages,
Yes.
was a threat because Kenyans were not awake to that information, or it's just dangerous because that's how things are?
Probably both. Both. At that time, people are not very aware of the dynasties and the impact they had had and the control, the level of control and influence that they had maintained in the country. Slowly it began to unravel when you find that the richest are from the dynasties. The political parties are controlled by the dynasties. The dynasties have banks. The dynasties have huge business interests. The dynasties have large land holdings. The dynasties just control the entire economy.
Paint for us a picture of what you saw for you to bring this conversation up. I understand that you've given
Yes.
nuggets of that.
Yes.
Like the triggers that made you feel that that's a conversation that was important to have then.
My background is not of opulence. I am the son of a nurse. Both my parents were civil servants, hardworking civil servants. The greatest accolade that came to my home beyond probably my grandparents was that my father had national renown, having been the captain of the national team, Harambee Stars in the 60s, and being captain of Luo Union Football Club. That probably gave me some social identity. But in terms of opulence and the legacies that went with the dynasties, with very little work, you see, what that sort of divide came about was there is a fraternity, a group of people who work so hard every day in this country, very hard, but they earn very little. Then there's another small group of people who earn very big with very little effort. Basically, beyond moving papers, tenders, and networks, you don't find much intellectual input. You don't find much labor. And I thought that the nation needs a more balanced society where we would bridge, first of all, bring out the discrepancy between these two segments of society, and then also, once bringing consciousness to it, then find a way to bridge that gap where we could have a more balanced society. I mean, it does not make sense, some of the institutions that we have, where the MD earns 5 million and somebody earns 25,000. Doesn't make it's a complete colonial mindset that we needed, that I felt we needed, and I still feel we do need to move away from. So that even if there are hierarchies of whatever nature, I mean, we can't all be footballers. We can't all be rugby players. We all have our inherent skills, but our earnings must be based on a form of fairness. The current structures of earnings that we have were constructed by the colonials for the colonial leadership, and then the little ones that we enjoy were constructed by the colonials for the colonized. That's why some people earn very little, and some people earn, incredible amounts of money. And if, for example, somebody walked in today and set up his own business, or went and did his athletics or football and earned his money, what problem do you have with him earning whatever he wants? But if it is public, money that derives from the public, there must be a fairer system of remuneration. The gaps must be closer. That is public. Yes, it involves collective monies. It involves communal monies. It involves people's monies. I see no reason why an AMD in a parastatal should earn 20 million or 5 million or 8 million plus benefits, 50 million, and there are clerks there who also have children who need a proper education. We're not trying, the structures must not be seen to be trying to maintain the gap between the haves and the have-nots. We need to bridge it.
I am with you on that.
Yes.
But the proponents of the payments for people who work for government on certain positions match that salary with their counterparts in the private sector.
They match that salary with their counterparts in the private sector, but these are completely different private sector. I'll give you an example. There's one bank, I think, where the boss must be earning close to 20 million or something.
Yes, so I heard, yes.
If you want to earn 20 million, it is also good that you can also set up your own bank.
The conversation always plays around for you to manage assets worth billions, hundreds of billions.
Yes.
It's only fair that your ideas are commensurate to the value you bring in terms of profit and bonuses, right? I'm with you on to the level that the gap needs to be closed, right?
Yeah.
But how do we close the gap? Like for example, if you and I are working on something, how can you win without it being taken from me?
Yes, exactly. What I'm saying is that as much as the leadership will definitely get a more advantaged package, that package must be the people, the bottom. Actually, the quality of a society is normally known by how it treats the weak, the disadvantaged, and the poor.
Is the person, is the CEO earning 20 million? Is the 20 million taken from the person below, or capitalistic institutions are such that by design, the person who does something else needs to be paid less to justify their, I don't know whether subservience, their acceptance of the level they are at, or the motivation for them to be where they are at. An economist, Adam Smith, claims, he has a submission that everyone hopes they can get more money, so that, and when they get more money, what they do is they employ more people. Most people don't use that money for themselves, even though they do not remunerate properly. When let's say, for example, if you have access to 20 million yourself, chances are you may not eat the 20 million by yourself. You will spread it, you will increase your convenience. You buy more convenience. You will get yourself a few drivers, a few cars, a few house workers. You understand? Like there's some sort of a pyramid. So to some extent, the figure is subjective and egoistic to some extent, but one way or another, save for pointless holders who just keep money for keeping money, it still circulates. I still also recognize your submission that it's a system that was created. But I fail to understand whether the money that is paid to the CEO has been taken
from the other guy. What I am saying is that there needs to be a direct relation between the money earned at the highest and at the lowest. If the institution is well paying, pay everybody very well and manage that gap. But what do I realize is the bigger problem? Now with hindsight, it is the education system that is faulty. We have an education system that is so polarizing and that focuses its entire pinnacles on the ability to consume processed knowledge.
The ability to consume
processed knowledge.
What does that mean?
Means that you go to school and you are simply fed with knowledge. You read and you're able to absorb this knowledge. Then your absorption level is tested. Then you pass, then you're done.
You are tested on absorption of the knowledge,
Yes.
not your application.
Thank you.
of the
Absorption.
knowledge.
Now, what I have been proposing is that we therefore need to change the focus of our education system from focus on processed knowledge to focus on knowledge production. In other words, you change the whole, one of the first questions you must answer is, why do you go to school? In my answer it is, you go to school to consume processed knowledge in order to produce new knowledge of your own. You must produce. If you cannot produce knowledge, then you have no business running even a parastatal or an institution, because you're a consumer. That is why you find the orientation of the education system is so important to the practicality and realities of life, that if you give a consumer an institution, they will eat it. That's why all parastatals are breaking. But look at the level of qualifications and certificates that go with those institutions. But they're all failing. Mm-hmm. But if, for example, I find young Kingori who can make or who can generate energy from the air, he's a creative. If I take that idea of his and I go and copyright it, and he gets a patent for it, and the patent is probably valued at $200 million, if Kingori decides, and there could be many Kingoris, each with their own, or for example, if in your local primary school or in Mwembe Tayari Primary School in Mombasa, I am getting 10 patents per year worth 200 million each, how much would the teachers' value be if they were only given 10% of these $200 million in terms of value? They would be worth $20 million each based on each patent. In other words, if we go the way of intellectual property as opposed to university degrees, Kenya will proceed. You see, one of the things that you find is that the group of academicians who cry the most, I can't get a job, I need a job, who even carry banners, are from which segment?
The graduates.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Do you see diploma holders going to the streets?
No.
Crying?
Rarely.
Because of the sense of entitlement. Then you ask, what are you bringing to the table? I'm bringing to the table a paper. So I give you an institution to run. I give you Kenya Farmers Association, you become the MD based on your papers. How many have survived? How many have survived? But if I gave Kingori, who is able to create, and I tell Kingori, this is the institution I want you to look at. I have seen what you have done in these two fields. You have created this and this. Can you come up with something unique for this institution that will make it run, relevant? I'm sure Kingori will do something, because Kingori is oriented towards generation. Towards generation. That is his orientation. So that you can, by the end of your tenure, say that, one, this institution has produced this number of patents. That was one reason. Number two, if we start focusing on patents, the skills, the ability to generate is not restricted to primary, secondary, or universities. Everybody has it. So if I tell all the primary schools, all the secondary schools, and all the universities in the country, that from each, we just expect 20 patents per year, what would be the value of our education system?
Which begs the question.
Yes.
You make a very solid submission.
Yes.
Solid submission.
Yes.
We have something in high schools
Yes.
called the Science Congress,
Yes.
where people
Yes.
come to present
Yes.
ideas.
Yes.
And I believe if statistically we are to go with empowerment,
Yes.
I'd like to see what becomes of these ideas that are presented in Science Congress, whether it is they die at the table of presentation, or there is deliberate effort to stifle them.
Yes.
Because I believe we've had an episode, had so many conversations, this very recent, whereby a guest told us that in Kenya, people are trained in school. I think it's in an upcoming episode or we've aired it. People are trained in school whereby foreign governments sponsor studies in local universities, but even if a student in Kenya made a groundbreaking discovery, it cannot be
attributed to him
or implemented in Kenya.
Yes, yes, that is true.
So, because you will say, if we have Science Congress and nothing much comes of it over the years in terms of ideas that are applied nationally, you would say on one side, do we have a shortage of ideas in terms of the capacity of creativity is an illusion, right? Or there's a deliberate effort to stifle good ideas?
No, it's the system. The system was a colonial system that was brought here to create people who would help the colonialist manage his plantations, his businesses, his enterprise. That is why it was put in place. But I have had the opportunity of traveling across quite a number of nations in Africa for seminars, trainings, presentations, very many. And believe me, the Kenyan mind is respected and very highly rated. Now, when you're creating an education system, you must also try and understand the population for which you're creating. Kenyans have a very high intellect. You cannot limit the Kenyan mind to consumption of knowledge. Actually, the education system is stifling the growth of the nation. You tell Kenyans today that I want patents and copyrights in schools and everywhere. Bring it. There will be a partnership, a government and citizens partnership, where with Kingori has come up with a hub that is able to clear skin diseases overnight. Register it at your primary school. Get the copyright value. When the value comes, the primary school has a percentage, the locality has a percentage, everybody goes home happy. But the current education system, the school within your village is actually also a consumer. What from the school goes back to the village directly, to the community? You're eating the money of the community through school fees, high school fees, through uniforms, through food. Everything is going into the institution. But what is coming up? What is coming out? Now, we want a system where you can change that primary school in your village to be the primary industry of that village. If we have 10 bright students who can give us 10 patents in 5 years, how much money will that school be valued at? The school will start doing roads, will improve roads, will improve lighting and energy systems. The school will do everything for the locality. So the school must be the first point of production in our communities. That is number one. The school is not about the children who go to school. It is about the grandfather. It's about the community. I am 45 years old. I am a shepherd. And I have come up with an ingenious method of creating something. And it's working. The whole village uses it. I just walk to the school. I should be able to have a structured system where I walk to the school, and each school must have a copyright desk, patents and copyright desk, where you walk in, register your idea. After registering your idea, it is processed and packaged for you, and then it is put up for value and partnerships. The nations, the nations we consider the superpowers of the world have one distinction. They stand very high up in the IP index of the world. America, China, Japan, Switzerland, Korea. What's their big thing? Intellectual properties. And I can assure you, having traveled quite a bit and interacted with people from many nations, our Kenyans do. For example, would you know that crowdsourcing software for elections across many countries were designed in Kenya? Yes. Kenyans, particularly in software, Kenyans are very respected globally. And basically at performance level, management performance level, intellectual performance level, the Kenyan mind stands out. Then you come to our country and you find that the system of education is consumption. You're not challenging the mind. You are not challenging the mind. Because if you have 1,000 students in an institution, how much capacity do you have in that institution? How many brains do you have?
Even if 10% of them could produce legit problem-solving
solutions, ideas. That's all you need. They don't have to, the whole school doesn't. The rest of the school, you can leave them with consumption. They can get as many papers as they want. He can call himself Doctor, Mr., Professor, JVC, AM, FM. Okay.
Yes.
But give space for this knowledge producer. Give him space. He's the one who transforms society. He's the child who is able to look at a computer and become a master of that machine without going through any college. Where do you place him?
I saw a very interesting video.
Yes.
It was passed around as a joke.
Yes.
Of 4-year-olds
yes.
in China,
yes.
working machines,
yes.
doing soldering
yes.
wires.
Yes.
And they were actually 4-year-olds.
Yes.
And then they split the video
yes.
into what happens in Africa.
Yes.
20-year-olds university graduates
yes.
working.
Yes.
And it was a stark contrast.
Yes.
How much time has been lost
in between
these ages.
A friend of mine asked me 2 days ago that the first 15 years of our education, by the time you're leaving school, you're functionally still completely incompetent. You can't produce anything. And you've been in school for 15 years.
The first 15 years?
Because you go to school, say, at the age of 7.
Yes.
So 15 years in school, you're 21.
Yes.
Now, if you're told beyond what you have consumed, what else do you put on the table?
So, that's a solid question.
Yeah.
This thread starts from dynasties.
Yes.
How were these dynasties created?
I think dynasties is a very old. The original dynasties of the
in Kenya.
Okay, giving a background. In societies, they are normally what you would call certain families that dominate mainstream interrelation with light. Normally, in the case of most of our leaders, it's interaction with light or education. That's where they started with. They were pioneers. Many of them were pioneers who pursued, pioneers in pursuing leadership.
Pioneers in pursuing leadership.
Kenyatta came at the crux of independence. Odinga, Moi, Kadu. That gave them leverage.
They were born at the right time and the right setting.
Yes. So that happens, and many of them eventually consolidate and take very deep root in society. Hence, you find the House of Windsor. You find that they're all called houses. Houses because therefore they are structures. Though the original lineages that are biblical were based on purely one thing: intellect. Intellect. That is why it is said in the Holy Bible that the Messiah shall come from a lineage of scribes, writers. Now, I must distinguish this. People who can, when you graduate at university, you have been given the power to read and to write. But nearly everybody reads. How many people write? How many people have written books?
Oh, that's the kind of writing you're talking about.
Yes.
Not writing your name.
Not writing your name.
Yes.
Not writing a story of Michael met Jane behind the fence and they talked and then Jim threw a stone. No. Not storybooks.
So what you're saying is, by virtue of being called a graduate, you should be able to write a book.
To produce knowledge. You're ripe. You have consumed.
In fact, to produce knowledge in the field.
Yes, that you specialize in. If you cannot, then let us just say there is the substance and there is the sheen. So you may dwell more on the sheen than the substance. You must produce knowledge. You must write. You must write. Everybody can read. For example, if I became president today, one of the first things I would change. If you want to apply for any parastatal job, you must be able to write some 4 pages of what you intend to do. Write it. And don't write it
through your assistant.
Don't write it through your assistant. The interview would just be simple. Because by the time you're being shortlisted for an interview, we are satisfied that you have some fair level of capacity. So bring them into a hall, no computer connectivity, you just give them a machine. Write a 2,000 word article. I'm giving you from 9 to 11 about what you would like to do for Kenya Pipeline. Write it. Believe me, what you will get is nonsense. You will get poor diction. You will get poor comprehension. You will get just a mish and mash.
Diction a measure of intelligence?
No. But the way you are able to present yourself is proof that you're clearly thinking. The way you're able to connect words means that you have mastery of communication. The way you're able to communicate, writing and speech means you know what you're talking about. If you can't write, and the key thing about those positions is that the role they do is they're involved in specialized writing. Everybody who is at management level is involved in one thing majorly: specialized writing.
Which they don't do, is done by their assistant.
Yes, you are doing reports, you are doing working papers, you are doing proposals. It's specialized writing.
Which makes you expose a very fundamental flaw in how people get to those jobs.
Yes.
Kenyans have accepted that parastatal jobs are political appointments and rewards for failed politicians for the most part.
Yes. Ask them to write.
What does that cost us?
You see, people have always assumed that because I have come in with a certain level of papers, I am competent. No. I am telling you today, if you subjected the CEOs and the top executives of our parastatals, and even in government, many of them, just ask them to write a 1-page working, or 2 or a 4-page working paper, or a concept note on what they want to do, some specialized form of writing, you will see the mess we are in. They can't write. They can read.
What's the relationship between writing and competence?
Writing and competence. When somebody understands a subject, they're able to write about it. You must understand your subject. And if you're able to understand your subject, you can write about it. You can summarize it, even to 700 words, which is the standard for even a newspaper article. How many senior government or senior parastatal officials do you see writing in the newspapers?
Very few.
They can't. Many of them cannot. And the job that they're doing is not just decision making, it is specialized writing. You remember the story that we had at KBC, where a CEO of an institution signed a letter without checking whether it was in dollars or Kenya shillings, and it brought a problem.
I don't remember that story.
Last year, I think a CEO was fired because the letter that was written was not checked properly. There was no editing of the letter, and he committed the institution through an error by writing a great number of dollars as shillings. Or he made that mistake of confusing the two. It means he didn't read. He didn't read. The written word is the key to the future. When we talk about civilization, we are oriented towards the West, yet we are in the East because all our libraries are full of books from the West. We can't even fill a library with our books, and yet we have about 40. How many universities do we have in the country? We can't fill our our libraries with written material. Or let me put it this way. If Kingori came here today and told me I am a very well-read man, the first question I will ask Kingori, by the time he finishes that statement, Kingori, who has read you? Yes, you have read everybody's everything, and I appreciate. Thank you very much for your competence in consumption. But now let's look at the production.
Yes.
Kingori, have you written a children's storybook? Have you written tales of my land? Just stories that we pick from the villages. The Nyamgo, the Wodombares, the hare versus the hyena. Have you written anything? Why am I saying writing is important? When you live, you accumulate wealth and knowledge and a lot of things we don't need. When you die, all these things are transferred to your heirs. There's only one thing that doesn't change: name. Land will go to the ones who are living, houses, cars, everything. But a book that you write will carry your name eternally. It is for that reason that we still talk about Moses, Solomon, David, Enoch, because they wrote. In other words, philosophically again, if you want eternal life, write.
Have you written a book that has Luo stories but told in English?
I have written a book in English that explains Luo and universal history.
You have not done Luo folk stories?
No. There's those who write folk. I don't write folk stories.
Okay.
No.
Okay, understood. There's something you mentioned.
And why I do that is because English is actually a byproduct of the Luo language.
You mentioned that.
Now, when I say in Luo, reso, it means to rest, to save. Then the Luya say, ohuresa. Same meaning. Then when I get to the West, it is rescue.
You have very many examples of that.
Yes.
But it's a very interesting thread to follow, but I'm very curious because what we are following carries a very interesting theory of poverty.
Yeah.
I feel like we are coming so close to it.
Yeah.
We start from, this thread starts from you leaving Kenya in 2009, you mentioned the Dynasties. And we were heading towards how that system of a few people controlling wealth cripples the many, right? We were establishing that. So you gave a very good example, first mover advantage, people born at the right time. In fact, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta's qualification for office was as simple as he could speak English.
Period. The word again.
He could just speak English.
Yeah. If you could speak English, you are considered uppity. You are considered cultured. You are considered conscious. And if you spoke vernacular, you are considered closed. In school, I don't know about your time, when we were kids, in most of the schools, anybody who was caught speaking vernacular would be caned. And you would wear something on your neck that I will not speak vernacular. Vernacular was condemned. It was backwardness. If you couldn't speak in English, you are undereducated, you are useless. Now, what does that do? When you come and tell people that English you're actually speaking is a byproduct of local Luo and Luya languages, it completely demystifies the potency or the supposed potency, that intellectual potency that was related in English. If all the thought processes and all the roots of the language are African and local, what does that say about our languages? It actually says that we need to have a new segment within the structure of national languages, official languages. We need a third tier.
Which also begs the question, from that analysis you've just given, I agree with you on some of the points you've made in terms of ideas that could change the fortunes of
the common man.
People. Yes. So for the people for someone who's watching this and they've gone through university, they've graduated and they don't have a job, how would they reset?
How would they reset?
Yes.
You have to reorient yourself. You have to learn to build from zero. We've seen people build many, and I'm not saying not all of them are closed. There are many people who simply leave, go and start an industry from zero. But the only problem with the orientation is that you expect to start at the top. I had an issue with the parastatal the other day. I had walked in and told the guy that, hey, I have this electricity bill that is very huge. And he summarized it for me as the boss. And I paid. Then later on, I was given a very big bill again, which he had not indicated. So when I started putting pressure on him, he says, I don't deal with that directly. That's dealt with by my juniors. Because in his mind, being a regional boss, he is supposed to delegate such deals. He maybe wants to deal with corporate. So it's in the mind. Once you are through with school, the first thing you should be asking yourself is, what can I produce? Not where can I get a job. That thing you produce is what will earn you what you want. I have to innovate. I have to think beyond the box. I have to come out with something that I can put on the table. I cannot make consumption my lifelong experience and I wallow in it until I die, even if I wallow in comfort. I must produce something.
Does the economy with the structures that exist support innovation?
There are no structures. Now they're being built slowly. You must give credit. We are slowly realizing that we need to create more space for research and for innovation. But the education system as we know it has no space for innovators. They are condemned.
Even the CBC,
the CBC is very poorly structured.
How so?
The CBC has no one, even when you look at the sequencing of the timing, there has to be logic to the time, whether it's 732, 844. What does the 8 mean? Why 8? Why 4? What is the orientation of CBC? What is the philosophy behind CBC?
Competence.
Competence.
Yes.
Now, if it is competence, tell me so far. In fact, we will judge it when it starts producing. But CBC is an education system. What we're looking for is a knowledge system that is comprehensive. We are looking for a knowledge system. CBC, if you today are able to make a radio from plants, how does CBC reward you? What does it call you? What title does it give you? What grade does it give you? If I am able to fix an engine that can run on wind from Nakuru Olympic Primary, what does CBC give me? How does CBC recognize me? There needs to be a clear path for the innovators within the academic system, that this is the path they follow, which makes us go back. We also have to review to get to this skills-based generation. What we today have called polytechnics doesn't make sense. We need to start from monotechnics, not polytechnics. Specialization. This is electronics. Kabete Technical Institute is purely for electronics. A monotechnic where everything is supposed to be focused on electronics. And what you're looking for is intellectual properties. You're looking for producers. The consumers are there. They will go, and many of them can be there. They can be masters. But you're looking for just 5 or 6 people who can create something new. Then I go to Sigalagala Technical. Sigalagala Technical will be another monotechnic. For them, they're just dealing with hubs. Hubs. Anybody who has a specialty, you know that leaf can treat malaria, come. You know that leaf can treat this. It's just for hubs. So the people who meet there are herbalists, monotechnics. Okay. Then you go to, which other polytechnic do we have? Another polytechnic. Now they're just dealing with soils. You want somebody there's people who are masters at mining. How they know where there's gold, silver, you don't know. So we have to have monotechnics as opposed to polytechnics. Polytechnics are generic. Wakizungu hapa, social sciences pale, sijui wagani hapa. Monotechnics, specialization, highly skilled individuals. And remember that up to this time where we are speaking, the biggest thing that makes Kenyans live is their innovative capacity. Kenyans innovate. Now we are beginning to start getting natural resources, gold, silver. There's a lot of things in the ground. But so far we have survived with what? intellectual capacity only. Kenyans compete for very few resources. Intensely. That's where the competition, if you go to Uganda, competition is very limited. Here the competition is high for every space because there's no fallback position. You don't earn, you don't eat. Go to Uganda, you don't earn, but you still eat. When people work in Uganda, they work for extras, clothes, ornaments, phones, extras. Why? Uganda has 33% surface fresh water. So life is relatively easier. Food grows. Water is everything. Kenya, we only have 11% fresh water. Only 11. And out of that, I think 4% of that 11 is located around the Rift Valley and the Western region, the Lake Basin region, which has 59% of Kenya's surface renewable fresh water. 59. Out of the 5 water basins, that one has 59%. So these things count. But we must, the biggest strength we have based on our circumstances is this. So we must find a way to channel the intellectual capacities of Kenyans towards productivity. Kenyans produce, my brother.
Okay.
Look at papers that, the other day you saw this documentary that was done by a professor at Oxford University about Kenyans who specialized in writing theses for international students across the world. I mean, that in itself, though it is reverse, it denotes the level. They're able to write theses for any cause you want. Name the subject, they'll write it for you, and people pass exams based on that. So you can't subject the Kenyan mind to the ordinary ken of consuming knowledge and reproducing. Consuming knowledge, Focus him on productivity. For example, in your local primary school, if the headmaster, I would instruct the headmasters and the education system, every time people are going home, I want each and every student to come back with either an article, a 700-word article, or if you're an artist, a piece of art that you have drawn over the holiday. By the time these kids come back from school, I, as the art teacher, will collect all the art papers. I will put them together, edit, and I will produce Machakos High School students 2026 works of art. We will sell. We're already producing. The ones who write articles, we will come and develop a book where I would say Memories of Our Time, give it a title. Kathiani Boys High School, 2027. So by the time you're actually leaving school, you have a reference point to something you have produced. If you have students who are good with mathematics, you just find the different subjects to put and tell them, at the end of the term, when you're coming back, I only want this article. You will be producing books every year. The university or the school is already churning out books. These books can be sold to the locality. When visitors come from, why do you think we are given a lot of donations? British Council, we have given 5,000 books to primary school somewhere. They're simply reinforcing their cultural dominance over you. Mm-hmm. We must now start getting our counties to promote production of writing of books and publication, so that when visitors come, we are the ones who are now taking books to American schools, British schools, Australian schools. We are donating our books, works from students, Kenya students 2024. This is the mass of what we did. We are now changing the cause. We are filling our libraries where I have a reference point. When Dr. Kingori was at Alliance High School, what can I refer him to? What reference can I make of him beyond being number 2, number 3, and number 4? Okay. Go to the library, you will find a book that was published with Kingori's articles. I will read when Kingori is in public service. I will read and ask, wow, these were your thoughts then. So this thing needs a seamless continuity, but you must produce.
Okay.
Yes.
Understood. I read somewhere that a teacher was struggling. There's a book they used to teach students in terms of the evolution of cognitive abilities.
Yes.
From the impact of technology.
Yeah.
Mobile phones, short text, and stuff. And the story was, the teacher had taught in a school for a very long time.
Yeah.
And over a period, she noticed a transition whereby students used to be very excited about reading the story.
Yes.
And then at some point, they were struggling to even do a page.
Yes.
And this was attributed to the exposure to short messages,
Yes.
texts, phones, and stuff. It was affecting their reading capabilities. Don't you think, I agree with you,
Yeah.
and when you make your submission, I get a picture of how much we missed from school, how much we would have converted from our time in school, right? So now when you look at technology, it makes it even harder in terms of access. People have bought children phones from as young as kindergarten. They have mobile phones. When you look at text in a book
Yeah.
versus the colorful screens,
Yeah.
there's a very big mismatch.
Yes.
Like your brain moving from this
Yes.
to this.
Yes.
I also struggle and I have to read.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I have my friends, Nuria Bookstore. They're doing a
They
very
also
wonderful job.
sell for me. Yeah.
Yes, they do a wonderful job
Yeah.
to promote local authors.
Yes.
The numbers they give me of readership in Kenya is discouraging.
You're right.
You understand? Silas Nyanchwani and Jacob Alieta, my friends,
Yes,
the
yes,
authors,
yes, yes,
they've
yes.
been here.
Yes.
They told me that in Kenya, if you sell 3,000 books, you're in the bestsellers list.
Kenyans do not buy books written by Kenyans.
They don't know what they're missing.
Kenyans buy foreign books. I have tried to talk to vendors on the streets to sell some of my books. The message was one: Kenyans don't read books by Kenyans. Kenyans read books by foreign authors. And I think it's also the same neo-colonial mentality that afflicts us. That you believe that from your locality, nothing good can come. Whatever is good must come from the West. For us to move forward, we must look to the West without realizing that the East is the point of sunrise. Where we are is the point of sunrise. Now, we are so used to receiving knowledge and information from the West to a point where we have disregarded local. We don't even think about local. We don't think about production of knowledge. We just think about looking to the West. Give us something.
And I understand that before you read,
Yeah.
you can't know.
Yes.
I also had the same vibe.
Yes.
Until I got to Nuria, I got introduced to
Yes.
the works of Akina Jacob Aliet,
Yes.
Silas Nyanchwani,
Yes.
and one of Mbira Remi, who's
Yes.
been a guest on our show.
Yes.
Kiruki Mwidhimbu,
Yes.
who was a recent guest. These people write.
For example, in my book,
Yes.
the biggest buyer has been the American Embassy. Luo, Great Light of Nations, the 1,000-page book I wrote. The people who bought the most copies are the American Embassy and other foreigners.
Yes.
Locals don't buy, very few.
And that's where they can consume knowledge that they can relate with.
Yes.
Locally.
And then there's one element you just brought, the issue of technology.
Yes, that was
One of the many people have not clearly studied the impact of the computer age on education. You see, before the explosion of the computer network, all knowledge was restricted to two places: the libraries and academic institutions. If I wanted to read, I had to go to the National Library to scrum for books and look for them. Or I had to go to somebody who had access to other books in an institution. But the advent of the computer network completely liberalized knowledge. Knowledge was now readily available. I go to the net, anything I want, I can get. Anything. So it completely diluted it opened up that rigid path that was restricted primary to secondary to university. It closed it down completely. Now I can access knowledge from anywhere. Long time, for you to get any specialized knowledge, you had to get very special people. But these days, people are using the internet to create more knowledge. Then the biggest impact now, the one that is the latest, is the AI generation. It writes for you. All you have to do is tell it. It draws for you. It does everything. Now the impact of the AI means that we must transform our education system completely. It must be revolutionized. We can no longer focus in fact, it reiterates my position that we can no longer focus on knowledge consumption, but on knowledge creation, because this enables it. So all you're supposed, because it brings you all the information, instant. You ask it, give me 1,000 words or 1,000 references on this, it gives you. Long time, how long would it take you to get a reference?
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It is I think the issue about progress is speed. If the education system is faster, then it means the delivery must be faster. Then it means the road and the road networks and the transport systems must be faster. Everything must be faster.
So
because it's like a high, what do you call it? This wind assistant, there's an assistant. So the biggest thing that we have is speed.
Then how does that affect writing now? Because if you can't read, you can't write.
Yes.
And I've already established, and I'm convinced by that theory,
Yeah.
that when you, the screen reduces your cognitive abilities to read written material.
Yes, I think one of the biggest things is that when the computer age came, we also shifted away from the black and white to the colored, where reality was now being relayed through many mediums. The phone is relaying you a colorful reality. The TVs, which used to be limited to maybe 10 hours a day, now is round the clock and it's colored, full color, instant information. So once once the reality now became visual, many people stopped laboring in terms of writing, which again is not bad. Why? For you to produce knowledge, you cannot, for example, I cannot sit in a seminar, eat the whole day, and you expect me to produce. No, you cannot produce when you are very fat and very full. You need to tie your belt. You need to move, to retreat from society, deny yourself when you want deep knowledge, and stay there for even 4 months. Writing without much contact. You cannot concentrate when you're overfed, when you're drinking too much, when you're socializing too much. No. Good writing and deep writing needs sacrifice and alienation.
If people consume knowledge from the phones and in the computer.
Yes. The people you're writing for now, that means the packaging. I will write my material. I can decide to write, because one of the things that moving forward you're going to find is that Kingori has published a book, but he writes AI edited. Then Gwada does his book, he writes no AI editorial. It's just my work. It's going to be the same thing we have had with kienyeji na broiler. Yes, that's what's coming. So we are going to have two menus of academia here.
So there will be value in deep work.
There will be value in deep work. That's what it will do. And it will be handwritten, not AI driven. That is going to be a big distinction moving forward, because I can publish 10 books with AI by next week.
But then again, the problem is, if someone draws value from the content they found from AI, what is it from this deep work that will be different from AI, which AI will be sourcing deep work of?
AI also has limitations. AI does not know many things. There's many things you can tell AI to do. It can give you a structure, but the core of the work, the pith of your work is your own. AI is also a machine knowledge consumer. It consumes, but it only brings out what it has consumed.
And is this let me give you an example, please. Let me lay a scenario for you, then break it down. There is value in, like, I've done this. I have a friend who says there is no pleasure in hard labor.
Yes.
So there's a difference between an author who says AI edited and there's you who disappears for 6 months to do work, right?
Yes.
Let me backtrack and give you an example. When we were starting out, this is 15 years ago, when I was getting into the industry, we had a divide.
Yes.
We had people who believed in theater, like getting on stage and the performance.
Yes.
They believe that's the raw art.
Yes.
Then Churchill Show comes and offers comedians platforms where someone can come up with 5-minute material. The next moment they are a brand, they are doing
moving,
up and apale. And the distinction was there was some form of hate.
Yes.
Because the half-baked the so-called half-baked artists
Yeah.
who are driving cars, they're living well, whereas the real artists
Were not.
were not.
Yes.
You understand?
Yes.
So who would you rather be? Would you rather be the half-baked artist who lives well or the legit artist who is struggling?
Okay, let me put it back. You know of the copyright musicians? The musicians who go, like, they only, you see, it's like saying you have to distinguish between Michael Jackson and people who can sing Michael Jackson songs. The fact that they can sing Michael Jackson songs, they get an audience, they dance, they have their fans, but they are still not Michael Jackson. So they are unable to produce songs of their own. So they sing songs of others. Now, that's what I'm saying, even within the education sector. When you have moved through your process and all you're able to do, you can quote for me anybody. You can quote Lenin, you can quote Marx, you can quote all the philosophers. Nietzsche, you can quote them all, Kipling, name them. But you can't even write one of your own that can be quoted. That's the challenge. Now, I would rather be for my commerce. If it was for commerce, I would be doing the half-baked work with AI. But for now, what is just for a very selective and small segment of people, and those books must be very highly prized because many of them will be solid work that you can sell to institutions. It's a completely different setup. But I would rather be the one who writes with my hand. If I want to write a work that I want to share, share beyond, I would rather sit down, write it. I must use AI, it provides information ready on the table. Press of a button, I can get a lot of this, but I have to put it how I want. Okay. The other day, I asked AI to tell me something about the science of sports. Very limited. It doesn't even know. It writes a few things, gives you a layout, but you find that it is pretty shallow. It doesn't fit in within what you... So AI is not really an answer, but it's an enabler.
Okay.
Yeah, a big enabler. It's a catalyst.
Okay.
Yes.
Understood. So now, I believe this conversation is a first of many, if your schedule allows,
Yes.
again and again, because your wealth of knowledge is vast. So for us, our conversations here have always been, as in the core agenda of our platform is to share and disseminate knowledge as far as financial literacy and economic empowerment is concerned. Yeah. Right? So for the Kenyan right now, you started with some, this conversation has been very deep. Yeah. But there are statements you said, like there are people who work so hard. Yes. So hard. Yes. For very little. Yeah. And that may not change. If for a time, for a period of time, but it can change. It can change consciously if we consciously focus on trying to find ways to bridge this, the gap between the haves. Kenya is a very polarized society, very polarized society, and polarized or between the haves, not even ethnically. The ethnic groups are so integrated, they live together. But the class that was left, the class divide that was left by the colonialist still defines our social life in many places. There's many restaurants you don't just walk into, not just because you're not because even of your wealth, but even because of the color of your skin. They are here in town. That apartheid, which is whether it's academic apartheid, social apartheid, exists in this country. And that must be bridged. I think it is live and let live. If I am able to lead an institution, if I am able to, you see, I lead this institution, I must also be able to provide leadership, direction, and better remuneration for everybody within that institution. Even if I pad my nest, however comfortable, I think I would be better also to be known as somebody who created better conditions for others who could not create it for themselves. Because the people who are, in terms of policy making, in terms of leadership, in institutions, across the board, they all come from a specific background of knowledge consumption. So they clearly create a class of themselves. For example, did you know that Kenya is only one of the only 4 countries in the world that relate leadership with a university degree? That you have to have a university degree to be a leader at governor or presidential level. It is only just changing. Only 4. Kenya's is even worse. It says from a recognized university. It's like telling me that
You must tell me where you ate your chips and chicken. If you ate it at Munyiri's, don't bring it here. But if you ate it at Intercont, then we can talk. That's what I'm saying no to.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We need to review that moving forward.
Okay.
And in terms of the things that you do here, you have done a very good job. I must commend you. You're one of our leading podcasts in the country and I think beyond this country.
Thank you.
You stand out. Your name precedes you.
Thank you, sir.
There is something I want to discuss one day when you get a chance. In 2012, I wrote and registered something called the Universal Theory of Circumcision that explains all genital modifications as being based on water and sunshine. That communities that circumcise are communities that have very little access to water, to fresh water. And those that don't circumcise have massive access to fresh water and they don't need any modification because they can wash every day.
Really?
Yes.
It is nothing to do with the transition from
That is complete nonsense. The people, most of the communities that engage in circumcision do not even know why they circumcise in the first place. I'll give you an example.
Please.
Kenya has 3 communities that don't engage in penile circumcision. Turkana, next to Lake Turkana.
Turkanas don't?
They don't.
Okay.
Itesot and Luo, next to Lake Victoria. All the rest, because they have to. Uganda, 33% surface fresh water. Only 3 communities circumcise. And only 3, but 2 of them are the only 2 communities that live outside the freshwater basin of Uganda, which is 33% surface fresh water. The Bagisu and the Sapini. They live on the eastern Uganda where there is no water basin. They must, because they cannot access water for ablution. Circumcision is purely about fresh water.
Fresh water.
If you have access to fresh water, you don't need to circumcise. It was an adaptation to diseases. When you don't wash, which is the worst place, which is the first place that is hit? The genitalia. Yes, I have written about it massively and presented about it at various seminars across the continent. It's all about water and sunshine. Yes, I'll give you a further example.
So this assuming everyone who lives by the lake takes a shower every day.
No. Yeah. Who lives within a water basin?
A
basin is a water body. Water from it denotes the influence from this water body. You see, the Lake Victoria Basin impacts a huge area, and life within the basins are very different.
And you did research. You confirmed purely. It's nothing to do with the transition. It's nothing to do with sweetness. Nothing.
It's just water. When somebody speaks about circumcision, you just ask him, where do you come from? Which basin do you come from? I come from the Athi Basin, 15% surface fresh water. You, Tana Basin, 16% surface fresh water. Me, from Lake Basin, 59% surface fresh water. I don't need any modification. Purely, it's that it is. It's just water.
Around which period does this start, the circumcision, as an adaptation?
It starts, you see, what happens is, when people cannot bath, infections are many. So the elders of society come up with a strategy and accept it. Even the Bible is a book of logic.
But the Bible, people were circumcised.
Yes.
Yes.
It was, and most of the Bible, people were in migration. As you're migrating, there is no water. You can't shower. You have to circumcise. Where there is no water, there is circumcision. Where there is massive amounts of fresh water, there is no circumcision.
What period of life does
it's from the beginning. It started from the beginning because the logic of circumcision that we find in the Bible it traces back to the Moseses of the world. And that was in the beginning. That is a way long time ago. So these were intelligent people. Moses was one of the most gifted people in the world. The times of Imhotep, the first medical doctor. They're the people who are providing this knowledge along the Nile Valley. It's all about water. I have registered it. I have the copyright. 2012. Now on the alternate, as you see this balance of water and sunshine, as you go towards the south, where now the sunshine reduces, The days are, you see the matrix is longer days sometimes, shorter nights and all that. That imbalance. Now you find that, like say when you go to Western Uganda, there is massive fresh water, but very little sunshine. So the men are weak sexually because they cannot get serotonin and dopamine, which is what triggers the libido. So what do? They now bring in a new adjustment called kachabali, where it is women who pull their clitoral elongation to make it hypersensitive so that she can get her sexual satisfaction without penile penetration. It's all about water and sunshine.
So sunshine also has a relationship to
that perfect balance between sunshine and water. The sun, like I told you, is the sun, S-O-N. And water is a woman, proliferation. It spreads. Water is what connects us. We connect through rivers, through lakes, and through oceans. So that is the proliferation of mankind.
Our friend Mbira Remy, who has written a book in it, New Confident Africa.
Yes.
I should get you a copy.
Please, I would like to read him.
I'll have it delivered to you tomorrow.
Thank you.
You will enjoy his ideas. So one of the things one of the ideas he submits is, now that you mentioned genitalia, like a man's balls has like a line.
Yeah.
Like looks like.
Yeah.
An afterthought. He says it was actually an afterthought that was soon after because they were not there.
Yes.
They were attached after.
Yes.
After creation, so ilikuwa kushona ya mwisho. Yes. It's like people are called wadau.
The last man.
The last man. Yes. And he makes a very good case for it in terms of evolution.
Yes.
And he also has I think I'll get the book delivered on his behalf by the powers vested in me. I'll get you a copy.
Please.
I also got a copy for our previous guest, Nganga Mwigai. Read it and then we can have conversations on the ideas he submits there.
Yes, I think from the little you've told me about him, there's one thing that I must say. He challenges convention.
He does.
He challenges convention.
He does.
And I think one of the greatest attributes of any scholar is to challenge convention and to place something on the table which we can discuss, like you're suggesting.
Yes.
So it's definitely something worth reading. Yet, such minds should be given leverage into, if they can have these alternative translations to things, then they should also have alternative translation. Government should take them, find a place to place them. Read this for us in a different manner. Because what we are looking for at the end of the day, forget our intra-competitions. We are looking to place Kenya at the helm of nations in the world. It's a global competition and we want to win.
Okay.
And we want to win with the best minds. We don't want to win with copied ideas. Go out there, we can't express ourselves. We are still talking to our colonizers about the information and the knowledge they gave us, rather than telling them what we know of ourselves.
Okay.
We are still translating ourselves or interpreting our things through their eyes, rather than interpreting them through our eyes.
Okay.
We need to put something on the table, and that's why I'd appreciate reading that book.
I will make sure I deliver you a copy tomorrow.
Thank you.
I have a very legit delivery guy.
Thank you.
Atakutafuta where you are.
Asante.
Asante. And wadau, please, I'll also get to Nuria to grab a few of your books.
Yes.
And I'll also place a link. Then, kwa description of the video, there's links directly to the Nuria store. Your books, our guest, Gwada Ogot. Please grab yourself a copy if you have enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Asante sana for making time for
Thank you, Dr. Kingori.
Karibu sana.
And I wish your show proliferates and to become the biggest in Africa and the world.
Thank you, sir. Amen to that.
Asante.